Hello, everyone, and welcome to this LinkedIn Live. I'm here with my colleague, Jean-Luc Kohler, and we're excited to have this session on engineering the future, harnessing innovation for sustainable impact. And we're celebrating this because it's World Engineering Day. And just a fun fact, this is actually the WFP Innovation Accelerator's first ever LinkedIn Live. So thank you for waiting with us for a few minutes for the slightly delayed beginning. It's very exciting to see that we have participants from around the world joining this session. And who am I? My name is Hila Cohen, and I'm the Deputy Head of the World Food Program Innovation Accelerator. And I've been lucky enough to see the work of WFP's engineering team around the world. Just Jean-Luc, can you hear me? All's good? Can you just give us a quick wave and say hello?
Yes, all good.
Great to see you. So maybe before we start, I'll just mention a few words about World Engineering Day and also about the World Food Program. So World Engineering Day provides an opportunity to celebrate engineering and the work of engineers, all types of engineers, as they support all types of projects and activities around the world. As we're a WFP, we're going to focus on what do engineers do in a humanitarian organization. So that's what we'll deep dive into today. Before we start, let me just mention a few words about WFP because you might know us or you might not know us. So we thought it'd be nice to share with you a few words. So the World Food Program is actually a United Nations agency, and we operate in more than 120 countries and territories around the world. We're actually also a Nobel Peace Prize laureate from 2020, and we were very proud of that. And I'm sure, Jean, when we received the Nobel, you were very proud as well. In addition, to just a few words about our work. So WFP distributes food in very complex realities, whether it's countries that deal with climate shock, or it's a place with conflict or war, or different situations where we can support the needs of local communities. So we do that. We buy the food locally, or we bring it with a very complex supply chain platform that WFP has. And we operate with more than 1,000 partners around the world. So we can't do our work on our own, and Jean-Luc will probably mention that as well. Another fun fact about WFP, we are a very complex operation. On a daily basis, we manage a fleet of more than 6,500 trucks, 140 aircrafts, and 20 ships to deliver support around the world, even in very complex realities and locations. And this is where the work of our engineering teams come to play. Another element that we do is something called cash-based transfers. Let's imagine that's the fintech financial technology arm of WFP, where we give cash to families so they can buy food locally. So it depends on the reality. WFP can decide if it brings physical food or it gives cash solutions to families. And today, really, we wanted to focus on engineering because it's World Engineering Day. You can see the lovely background that Jean-Luc has. And one thing you might not know is that WFP has more than 200 engineers supporting operations in more than 40 countries and really enabling infrastructure that empowers local communities and enables the work of WFP. So really, Jean-Luc, as the Chief Engineer of WFP, it's a real pleasure to have you here. And before we start the conversation, maybe you can say a few words about yourself.
Great, thank you, Hila. Good morning, Hila, and good morning, everyone online. I'm very happy to be today with you all. My name is Jean-Luc Kohler. I've been working with WFP for over 16 years in many different settings, particularly in operation and supply chain management. My career has led me to work in various big emergencies, the Sudanese crisis in Chad, the Haiti earthquake in 2010, or Rohingya crisis in Myanmar. My last assignment was actually in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and in that country, WFP, so World Food Program, looks at sort of working both on emergency settings, but also looking at the long-term impacts that the organization can have on the people that we serve there. I've recently taken over the new hat as a chief engineer, working now here out of Rome. So today I'm particularly honored to be here, to be online with you and celebrate with you all the World Engineering Day and the key achievements that all the engineers around the world are doing every day. Back to you, Hila.
Thanks so much. And just to mention, my colleague just informed me that we have more than 160 people joining this LinkedIn Live from around the world. So that's really exciting that everyone is interested in the work of the engineering team of WFP. And so it's a great opportunity to say thank you, whether it's morning, afternoon, or evening for you from wherever you're joining us. And I should just say, I'm a bit biased here because I'm actually a big fan of the WFP engineering team. I got to see the amazing work of WFP's engineering team in Nepal when I was supporting the emergency operations in 2015. And also, I hope that there's my colleague, Rohit Pukaral online. I was really impressed with all the work that he shared and the team did in Nepal in that emergency. So it's really exciting to have this conversation today. So let's go to the basics, Jean-Luc. I gave a bit of background on what WFP does. So now can you tell me what does the WFP engineering team do and why does WFP need an engineering team? So over to you.
Yes, Hila, indeed. It's a question that many people do have. Why does an organization like the World Food Programme, whose work focuses on food assistance, why do we even have engineers? So the connection that might not be obvious to everyone. However, if you start looking a bit more at how we operate, the complex context where we work, very often places where we operate are very difficult to access and cause tremendous challenges to get to. You quickly understand that there is a key role for an engineering team and to help making the assistance even possible. Engineering comes to play by building bridges, by building roads, by building warehouses, all of what's needed to make cargo reach the people that we serve in a right quality, in the right time. So on top of this, there is also WFP has quite large activities working on schools, on school meals, school meal activity, which can be done if you don't have a good school kitchen. So there as well, the engineers are active to make sure that there is a kitchen that allows schools to have healthy food for kids. So, I mean, in a nutshell, WFP rehabilitates, I mentioned it, bridges, roads, but also sometimes airstrips. But we also then work in building food markets, where food markets are non-existent, to help people to get to the food that they need. But sometimes even we go and build bakeries, and in Syria, we build large bakeries so that the food is prepared for the people that need the food. So this is there's also another aspect. I mentioned long-term before. So if you look at long-term, and there's a good example that I like to use in South Sudan. In South Sudan, where WFP engineers build roads to connect several towns. And in one specific case, building that road allowed to reduce the time from to connect the two towns from 6 hours to 1 hour, making the delivery of the food much more efficient for WFP, but also for everyone who needed to transport via that road. But on top of it, there was a second and I would say almost even bigger benefit of having that road connecting the towns is that communities started to settle along that road and started to cultivate land. So it had a long-term effect, a long-term impact on those communities to be able to settle in places where before they would not. So all this to say that all those engineers, almost 200 engineers that you mentioned before, have a large palette, a large variety of projects that are implemented. And over the past 5 years, there was more than $300 million on such projects helping the food, or let's say the activities that the World Food Programme implements to take place. So in each country, the contexts are different, but we always work with the vision of building a better future for the people that we serve. Back to you.
Yeah, and it's really, thank you for sharing these concrete examples, because really it's interesting to see not only how does engineering work helps WFP, in its operations, because let's say if you have a landing strip, it helps WFP's operations, it will help other organizations, it helps the local community. And also the example of building a road, 6 hours, changing that commute to a much shorter time is really significant for connecting communities, for enabling markets. As you mentioned, people start building houses and communities in those next to those locations. So it's really, really impressive. And sometimes I assume there's all kinds of unexpected positive results from these large operations. So thanks so much. Now, I'm from the WFP Innovation Accelerator. So I have to ask you a question about innovation. So can you give us an example of an innovation within an engineering project that your team has been involved in?
Sure. And before I go there, actually, Hila, it's good that you pointed out, because I might have missed it in the last answer, but to say that really it is the WFP engineers do work, and I'm saying it again, it's WFP engineers, but they don't work for WFP or for WFP only. Really, the big benefits that we see in the work that is done is usually for almost all our activities for the bigger community. So we don't work for ourselves. Now, to your question that you just asked about an example of places where we work on innovation. The engineering team in WFP is definitely committed to create a sustainable future, not only hunger-free. That is our WFP mandate as WFP. However, it's much bigger than this. We also are very environmentally conscious, and many of the activities that we implement need innovation in order to make long-lasting impact and impacts that are environmentally conscious. So let me try to pick one example amongst the many that engineers are implementing and have an innovative twist. One of the recent one that I like to talk about is in El Salvador. El Salvador, where many schools where WFP aims at providing food lack proper kitchen and storage facilities. The situation came actually to a point which made it a national priority of the government to improve school kitchens across the country. The situation was too complex, too difficult. So it needed a quick and a cost-effective solution. And that's where the so-called Kitchen in a Box project came to life. El Salvador, the WFP team in El Salvador, together with your team, actually, the accelerator team came with the idea, and the engineers then jumped in to make this idea a reality. So it's the way it was done is by using recycled containers, shipping containers. Those containers were rehabilitated, and after preparing a kitchen design that could fit into the small space, they were transformed, fully equipped with energy efficient solutions, solar panels, and cooking appliances, including a rainwater collection system. So, and on this rainwater particularly, this is an element which was key in the design of those kitchens, because El Salvador has problems of water. It has insufficient water. So having this rainwater collector allowed big water saving in an area where every drop of water is important. So in the end, we managed to design a solution, first one container, but then several containers, which ended up helping over 3,000 kids, children going to school and benefiting with, thanks to that solution, safe and nutritious meals in a cost-effective solution that is easy to replicate. And the environment impact, or the impact on the environment, was very, very little thanks to that solution. So this is just one example, and there is many, many more. But I'm confident that the future of engineering holds countless more opportunities where innovation can prove to be the solution in addressing many of the global challenges.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's this is LinkedIn, and there's probably people joining from different career backgrounds, people from the private sector, from the public sector. People work with WFP or may never worked with WFP, and they might be surprised by all the work that WFP engineers are doing. So that's thank you for sharing that very concrete example from El Salvador. Now, we mentioned sustainability, and I think that's one of the trends that we're seeing in the engineering sphere. I wanted to ask you, from your perspective, you oversee the operations, global operations of WFP in the engineering sphere, but you also have deep, let's say, operational knowledge from several operations of WFPs. So I wanted to ask you, what are the trends that you're seeing that are coming in the future in the realm of engineering? And maybe there's also some that are specific to the humanitarian world and the realities that we face in complex situations. Over to you.
Indeed, indeed. In particular, the humanitarian engineering sector world, there is a number of critical challenges that need to be addressed. Not just linked to one of the big theme of hunger, which comes up so often, but actually also linked to climate change and how best to prepare our future solution to work with the fact that with the climate change. In this, innovation and sustainability will be key allies when adapting to these challenges. Actually, many of the challenges we don't even know yet today. So we must use innovation or innovative engineering solutions and technologies to enhance the efficiency and effectiveness of our operations. I think that is something that we won't be going around at the trend that is today, but will keep on in the future. We also have to apply sustainable practices to minimize our impact and promote long-term development, long-term resilience in the community we serve. It's already happening today, actually. However, what I see, or as a trend I see, is that this will become more and more critical in the future. Today, we have some projects. We have a project in Nepal that we just implemented with working in clean energy. Engineers on schools have installed solar panels, which run entirely on solar energy and makes the school able to use solar energy for their as a main source of energy. This was done working very closely with the government, and I think that is one other sort of trend twist that we will see is the element of partnership. Partnership here in this case with government, but partnership in general is something that in future engineering trend will be. And when I talk about partnership, it typically links also to the communities that we serve. So what I see is more and more engineering will work with for communities, find solution with the communities, and even get the solution implemented by the communities. And that's one of the trends. Is the trends to work more, I mentioned it before, with governments. Why? Because governments are coming to the engineers of this world and asking for them to receive the good practices that engineers are able to implement in one place and to replicate them in another place. There's also partnership with the private sector, which becomes more and more critical, in a way to amplify the impact and tackle the challenges collectively. And the private sector, with all their knowledge, expertise, has a key role to play in that area. And finally, when we come, and that links a bit to the accelerator again, Hila, is the fact that the partnership with academics, with laboratories, with the R&D sort of elements, so in this still element of innovation and sustainability, and where we really can, humanitarian engineering can benefit from having the support from those partners as well. So I'm confident that with all the above, we will be shaping the future where we can continue to deliver our mandate.
Thanks so much. And it's really interesting, right? Like, I think there's different trends that you're seeing that are also relevant from the private sector and our world, right? It's not only like the sustainability topic. I think we're all thinking about it, and it's, many times the places where we operate are dealing with double burdens, which it could be also a case where there is climate shocks and conflict, and there the work of our engineering team is critical, really to help the people dealing with very harsh realities. And what we try to do, as you mentioned, together with governments, together with the private sector, together with academia, is to really help those who need it the most. And it's sometimes quite complicated, right? Like it's, even in terms of procurement, supply chain, the infrastructure that you can build on. So yes, so thank you for sharing those trends. And just to mention, Jean-Luc, you're not aware of this, but I'm getting updates here from my colleague Jackie. We actually have close to 290 people listening to us right now. So it's a great conversation, and I'm happy that a lot of people want to learn about WFP's engineering work. So now we're on LinkedIn, and I think a lot of people come to LinkedIn to get inspired and want to maybe think about maybe different options that they might have in their career. So maybe can you give a few pieces of advice for someone who might consider, is trying to get to work as an engineer in the humanitarian sector? Because as we mentioned before, the realities where we operate are complex. The things you need to take into consideration and the types of activities that we do, for example, that you wouldn't expect, like building kitchens. I don't think people thought that engineering WFP would do that. So I wanted to ask, can you give us a few practical tips for someone who's considering to join the humanitarian sector and work in the engineering sphere, or someone who's in the early stages of their career in the humanitarian sector as an engineer? So the floor is over to you, Jean-Luc.
Yes, indeed. I forgot to mention when I introduced myself that I was working in a private sector before joining WFP. I worked in a large commercial company as an engineer, and so I also had that question, and that when I joined, and we call it's humanitarian engineering. What does it entail? What's the particularity of it? It still is an engineering work. However, it has its ticks and tweaks, differences towards the normal engineering that you see outside of the humanitarian world. One thing that particularly struck me when I shifted from the commercial, let's say non-humanitarian to humanitarian engineering world, was the fact that in the humanitarian context, you can never plan with anything, or you can plan, but you need to have many plans. There is a need to be able to be agile, to adapt to unconventional situation, or the way that you think 100 times or 100 different ways of doing things, but still it will not really capture the reality of what you'll be facing. You do a plan B, you do then, that was the past, you do a plan B, that's when you commerce sector, and you have a plan C, a plan D, a plan E. The reality usually is none of them will apply, and it's actually the situation F which will apply. So, it's someone keen to join the humanitarian engineering world needs to be able to rethink continuously, to work with instability, to work with conflict. How many of our projects do we start one day and thinking everything is going to work fine, but then unfortunately conflict comes up, and we have to rethink, not necessarily to abrupt the project, but to rethink how we can implement, because we can't monitor our projects the way that we're planning to do. So particularly movement restrictions in our world do pose a real complexity, a challenge that we have to work with. So to all women and men keen to work as humanitarian engineers, one thing that I certainly would say we certainly need to have is strength and able to start to be strong, a strong ability to adapt, to deal with uncertainty, to rethink a project, and to accept in the end, that very often the perfect plan is just not going to materialize, to be able to work with a plan which might be a bit different from the perfect plan we had in mind first. This actually applies to both, to work, to the work life as well as the personal life, just so it's said. So I would encourage every woman, every man interested in engineering in the humanitarian sector to visit our website, to reach out to us via email. I think all the information should be available on LinkedIn as an event page. And of course, I'm also available here on LinkedIn for anyone who would like to connect with me to give hopefully a useful piece of advice.
And thanks so much. And I just, because we ask a question on career, maybe just let me mention this. WFP, regardless of the role that you're looking for, if you Google WFP careers, you can check what are the open opportunities across the organization. in mainly in the field operations of WFP, because that's where WFP actively recruits right now. So really, regardless of what you do, if this entices you and you're an engineer and you have a different type of other career aspirations, we encourage you to visit the WFP career website to see if there is a role for you. And let me just also mention this, like today we're talking, let's say, more on the construction engineers. I would say, I don't know if that's the right terminology, but it should be mentioned that in WFP, there's different types of engineers. There's software engineers, there's engineers that are not working in the engineering team, right? Jean-Luc, you mentioned this to me. So it's very interesting to see like that the amount of engineers we have in WFP. And I wanted to say, like, dealing with ambiguity, as you mentioned, is such an important element of, I think, any colleague in WFP who's joining us today. They will probably really relate to that you just need to be able to have a flexible mindset to deal with the changing realities and plan, but also be, as you mentioned, have a plan B, C, and E. Thanks so much. So now I just wanted to, I was about to ask you about fun facts that we wouldn't know about the engineering team, but I understand that there's a small twist. I was just informed. Yeah. So Jean-Luc, yeah, over to you.
Oh, a fun fact about engineers. I mean, you actually took away the point I want to make here, because indeed engineers, no, no problem. Engineers in WFP are actually, there is an engineering team, but I was in my, again, 16 years with WFP, impressed to see how engineers are actually scattered all over the organization. There's many roles that can be taken and by the engineering community in an organization like ours. And the benefit of having engineers, the ability usually to reshift, to rethink, and to come up with structured approaches to complex problems. And so I think, and so for all the engineering community who is now online, this is an asset that we all have, and that is particularly useful when working in a humanitarian context. And with this, I mean, I think for me at least, and Hila, I think we come towards an end of my intervention in this discussion. I think so. I just wanted to thank you for the opportunity, to thank everyone online who took the time to listen in, and again to encourage everyone to keep up with the good work, the great achievements that the engineers of this world are doing, are having impacts in different ways, but always are there and helping and making a difference in the lives of the people that we serve.
Thanks so much, Jean-Luc. And again, I want to thank our online audience. It's great to know that we had so many people listening in. And we will be sharing now a number of links, or we may have already shared a number of links with more information, where you can learn more about the work of WFP, about the work of WFP's engineering team, and any, so please check those links. And again, it's really WFP has a very operational DNA. We are first responders in some of the most complex realities, and there's an array of profiles in WFP that enable that. And of course, we couldn't do the work without working with the local governments that we work with, the local partners, and the local community. So we really hope this was an insightful session for everyone that joined. And yeah, wishing everyone a positive start to the week. And for the engineers out there, happy World Engineering Day. Thank you so much.